involved in some indiscretions with some ladies of the night. Well, supposedly he told one of his lady friends, and this shows you how good our national security is. He tells one of his lady friends during an encounter, listen, I'm going to tell you something only 7 people in the world know. There's life on Mars. But anyway, so much for national security. So anyway, they start us out with this right here. So where are they going next with this material? Well, there's a fellow by the name of Richard Hoagland who has made a career off this photograph, which is rather famous or infamous. Anybody recognize this? This thing right here, the face on Mars? Well, this has been fairly popularized. You're going to see more of it, a lot more of it. Now, this was taken by the Viking spacecraft back in 1976. And this region is known as Cydonia. Now, over here you see some pyramid-like structures. And over here you see, they call this the Lost City. They have names for all these different points. But then, of course, the most impressive thing is this so-called face on Mars. Now, Mr. Hoagland has gotten an awful lot of popularity lately. He's been on a number of television programs, including Larry King and Oprah and all the rest of them. He also has very close ties to the Clintons. He also spoke before the United Nations recently. In fact, this is on one of his tapes, and here's what he said. He said, the biggest threat to geoglobal stability is religious fundamentalism. The best way we could do away with religious fundamentalism is to prove, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that there's extraterrestrial life. Now, he could mean literally some being, but I have a feeling that people would have a harder time buying that, like with the alien autopsy. I think that was a dry run, and I don't think people bought that. But they might just buy something like this. One day you may be sitting at your television, all of a sudden some science editor will break in and say, we've got some breaking news here that's just going to shake the world to its foundations. And they'll have a live picture of this rover on Mars, and they'll say, we have found evidence of artifacts from ancient civilizations. Maybe this is where we came from. What do you think that would do to the religious community? How do you think that that would affect the whole religious structure of the world? Well, according to the Brookings study of 1960, it would essentially collapse it. And I think that's exactly what they're going to do. I think they are going to replace the they're going to replace the living God with a concept of a God. Okay, an abstraction, not a real God, not a living God, but a conceptual God. And I don't know what they're going to do with Jesus. I guess they're going to move him way down the ladder there or something. But I think this is the ultimate objective. And my personal belief, at the rate they're going, that there's a good possibility that they could pull this off, especially if they make the population very susceptible. And we're going to talk about some of the ways that they are softening up our brains to accept material like this. Okay, we've covered the objectives. We looked at the microscopic life. We've looked at this face on Mars. They've even considered faking a landing of some type. Now, this is not anything new. Back in the 50s, there was a show called The Outer Limits. And in The Outer Limits, they had an episode called The Architects of Fear, where the world was on the verge of a nuclear holocaust. So what they decided to do was to fake an extraterrestrial contact. Now, in addition to that, recently on Star Trek, I don't know how many of you all watch Star Trek, but there's basically 3 different groups out in space. There's the Federation, which is Earth, and the Romulans, which is another group, and then the Klingons. I think it's like federations like the United States, and the Klingons or the Chinese, and the Romulans or the Russians. But anyway, the Klingon Empire is in big trouble. Okay, they're about ready to collapse. They're in civil war. So what do? They bring the Klingon Messiah back. His name is Kahless. How do they bring him back? Through cloning. But he didn't know he's a clone. So they present him to the people as their Messiah. And the political cabal that controls everything is behind him, and they say, you be the moral leader of our people, and we will maintain political control. And we will have harmony in our civilization. So if these script writers have thought about this, you know that they've thought about this at the different think tanks like the Hoover Institute, the Rockefeller Foundation, and Carnegie Foundation, the rest of them. Okay, more softening up. This just happened on the 13th of March, 97, over Phoenix, sighting of a, quote, UFO. As of yesterday, I have found out, and you're going to be the first audience to hear this. As of yesterday, I have found out through my sources that this was a military exercise called Project Blue Smoke. And it is part of a coming series of anti-terrorism exercises under the Nunn-Lugar-Domenici bill, anti-terrorism bill. 27 cities initially are going to be involved, and the scenario is going to go something like this. You're going to be at your desk one day, and either the electricity is going to go out, communications are going to go out, telephones, whatever, or the water is going to be cut off. And they're just going to see how we react. And they may send a few FEMA people in, or a few people from the Department of Defense, but they have this scheduled. Now, the Phoenix City Council, Councilwoman Frances Barwood, made a big stink about this. She was also very interested in this exercise. Now, I did a closed interview with her. This will never be broadcast anywhere. It's going to only be available to my subscribers and selected individuals. So if you want to get a hold of that tape, the only way you can do it is become a subscriber. But we talked about a lot of things she would not talk about on the radio, specifically what happened at the city council meeting and what they were told and what to expect in the future and where they're going with this anti-terrorism stuff. But it's going to get rather interesting very soon. Now, in addition to that, a very strange thing happened. Governor Fife Symington comes out and he says, we want an investigation of this. 24 hours later, he comes back and he's on TV. This is a true story. He comes back on TV and he's got this guy dressed up like a little alien, you know, like I showed you in that former picture. And he said, this was all a big joke. We're just kidding. There's no such thing as UFOs. Now, either this guy is nuts, out of his mind. I know he's in political trouble, but, you know, what happened in that 24 hours? So anyway, these are the kinds of things that are going on. And we're going to, again, see more and more of these lights in the sky, these strange phenomena happening. The response of the national security establishment to the knowledge of the eschaton is the preemptive establishment of the New World Order. When the eschaton comes, and they know it's coming, and we've discussed some ways that I think they may deal with it, including using the UFO to manipulate people's psyche. But they're preemptively establishing the New World Order, or the One World Government, through the destruction of the sovereignty of all nations, including the United States. And of course, we see some familiar symbols here.